Good morning, everyone. It's a dark and dreary morning here in Capitolio, Pasig. I hope it's a little brighter in your part of the Philippines or of the world. Good morning. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us and being subscribers of Cignal TV. And also for those of you who go out of your way to watch Agenda via facebook.com/onenewsph and of course the same on YouTube. Maraming salamat. Today is October 3, 2022. I am doing my best to perform because I was the victim of food poisoning this weekend. Somebody cooked food. I wasn't paying attention. I ate the food without looking. I was too hungry. And voila, 8 hours later, I was sick as a rat. Okay, anyway, it's October 3, 2022. It's a Monday. Welcome once again. And let's start the day with our daily starter. This one is from Bill Gates. And it goes, if you have a broad framework, okay, then you have a place to put everything. Now, this caught my attention because itong si Bill Gates, medyo nosebleed ito eh. Nosebleed ito pag nakikipag-usap. I've watched some of his interview, a documentary on how he thinks, etc. And he's a deep thinker. And he doesn't, he doesn't just do things on impulse. And this one, it's a very good lesson because let's say at home you're going to cook. I can't. Why do I even want to talk about cooking? Anyway, if you have an idea of what you are going to cook within the week, okay, you have a prepared menu for the week, then you know what you need to buy, what space you're going to need in your ref, and how you are going to schedule your cooking based on what you are going to cook. And the same thing in anything you do. If you have at least an idea, yun yung sinasabi ng broad framework. Not specific right away, not particular plan, but at least an idea of how things should be, how you're going to go about it, etc., then all you have to do is find the pieces of the puzzle and put them together. Mahirap po yung bahala na si Batman, okay? We'll leave it up to the gods. Some people will say that is going to be a lot of wasted time, wasted talent, and wasted resources. And trust me, I have wasted so much in my life that from time to time I regret it. But if I had the broad framework of how things should go, I think I would have saved myself a lot of misery. Okay, now let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star. And weekend na nagka-controversy pa. Okay, the headline for the Philippine Star for today, picking it up from the weekend, 433 win 236 million Grand Lotto jackpot. The chances of 433 people winning at the same time is, according to Okta Research and also to the PCSO mathematician, 1 in 30 million. So out of every 30 million Filipinos, isa lang ang mananalo. Paano nangyari yun? Kasi, di ba, 433 ang nanalo. There is 110 million Filipinos. I don't know, sorry. I took Math 11 7 times, so I don't really know if it's a representative of all 433 winning at the same time is 1 in 30 million. Maybe. Okay, anyway, the headline is 433 win 236 million Grand Lotto jackpot. And I'm sure many of you are wondering, paano na yun? Magkano? I did my simple mathematics or arithmetic. If you haven't heard of that term, arithmetic, that was our mathematics in our time. 545,000 pesos per winner. At least that's my computation. However, okay, you have the 15 to 20% tax on the winners. So chances are, depending on how big the deduction is, they will be down to by 109,000 kung 20% yung tax. Kung mas maliit naman, baka mga 450 pa rin ang tatamaan. Hindi, 450 pa rin ang tatamaan ng mga nanalo. So, there you go. At the top of the front page, again, about gambling, special Pogo zones, a diversion. According to Senator Aquilino Pimentel III, okay, Coco Pimentel, yung mga the proposals of certain individuals that the government should simply put the legal Pogo, the authorized Pogo operators in special areas, zones, would address the problem of illegal Pogo operators, etc., etc. And according to Pimentel, that is just a diversion, another attempt para malusot or to enable the return or the continued operation of Pogo in the Philippines. And some people have even gone out of their way to clarify that the alleged kidnapping of Pogo operators was between illegal and illegal Pogo operator, or one Pogo operator to another kidnapping employees, and they're not Filipinos, etc., etc., and the people who have been killed are not Filipinos. Well, Isabong, we still haven't solved where the 34 missing Sabongeros are. They are all presumed dead. Okay, so let's not bullshit each other, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to have to use that word. I feel strongly about it when you see, read, and hear members of Congress lobbying for Pogo and for Isabong. Medyo nakakasuklam na po. Anyway, I will move forward before I get reckless here. The Senate will also set a probe on the PCSO who says the win of the 433 bettors was a natural occurrence. So, give it that. Kasi sa sabong nga panalo na yung manok mo, patay na yung kalaban mo, ayaw pang tumuka ng manok mo, talo ka pa rin, o tabla. Okay, so 544 billion pork found in DPWH budget. Okay. Again, hard-working Aquilino Coco Pimentel is at it. He is going to investigate the PCSO. He is fighting the return of Pogo. And now, he is calling for transparency in the proposed or approved budget of the DPWH, which he claims has a lot of oink-oink left hidden in it, okay? Marami raw na nasingit na with not enough details to determine what the pork was, or fund, okay? Hidden funds or unspecified funds in the DPWH budget. Meanwhile, mobility is vital in the fourth quarter to sustain economic growth. According to former advisor for entrepreneur Joey Concepcion, it is vital that Filipinos continue to go out, be allowed to go out, that we continue to be mobile, active, for the economy to continue, because if not, we are going to have a problem. And later in the program, we will speak with the economists and NGO gatekeeper to find out what is our situation And does Christmas look great? Look safe, or is it going to be miserable for many? Okay. Meanwhile, again, ito na naman kasi ito po, no? Debts to finance confidential intel funds of DepEd OVP. Okay, Senate Minority Leader Aquilino Pimentel III renewed his call to realign and remove some 650 million in proposed confidential and intelligence funds for the Office of the Vice President, Sara Duterte, and the Department of Education, which she also heads, as the funds are going to be financed by borrowings and will be paid by taxpayers. Yan na nga po yung sinasabi dyan sa tinamaan ng EWA na intelligence fund na yan. Why do non-law enforcement agencies get to have intelligence funds? That's a leftover from the martial law era. Give all that kind of money to the law enforcement agencies, the PNP, the NBI, and the military. And let's stop monkeying around with that. Okay, and the final piece of news, photographs that came out of Singapore. Ayan na po, okay. A picture tells 1,000 words, and someone is 1,000 kilometers kaya yun, away from the Philippines. Malacanang continues to be silent on Marcos attending the Singapore F1 Grand Prix. Ano ba naman yung magpasabi na lang, magpaalam lang. I am not going to make much of a comment. It's just, for all intents and purposes, oh, by the way, it's a weekend. The president is going to take a short break to go out of town. End of story. Wala. Lalabas, hindi magpapasabi. Ayan. So, kumalat po ang pictures ni Bongbong Marcos, ni Sandro Marcos, ni Martin Romualdez, all of them in Singapore to watch the F1, the Formula 1 races there, night races, and inulan sila. Inulan sila. Pero natuloy yung karera, but people are being critical of this activity because we are reeling. There are people who still don't have roofs over their heads, people who are still going hungry, no warm bed to sleep in, and the president is away. Yun yung kanilang mga criticism, yung mga nasa mga NGOs and those who are dealing with the disaster caused by Typhoon Carding. Okay, that's the front page of the Philippine Star. The time is 8:13 in the morning. Let's now go to our interview portion. We are not doing personality interview today. We are going to tackle certain issues, concerns, because if you remember the last 2 weeks, there has been a serious concern over increasing or rising cases of COVID infections. In fact, several of my friends have been getting COVID. Ako po, hindi ako tinatablan ng COVID. Tinatablan ako ng food poisoning, katakawan. Anyway, there have been rising cases, and it begs to the question that begs to be asked is this rising cases indicative of or the cost of having to going out? Is it indicative of people putting their guards down, or are there new variants that we are not paying attention to? Anyway, let's go to our first guest. Gab, please roll the Betamax.
Dr. Rontgene Solante is a respected infectious disease expert in the field of medicine. Solante holds various chairmanships in different hospitals. This includes the Section of Infectious Disease and Committee of Infection Control at Medical Center Manila, and Adult Infectious Disease and Tropical Medicine Fellowship Program at San Lazaro Hospital.
Okay, good morning, Doc Rontgene. Welcome back to the program.
Hi, good morning, Sir Cito. Good morning to our viewers.
Yeah, I don't want to start Monday on such a dreadful note, but last weekend and the week before that, I've heard from friends who, yung isang friend ko, he was going to go to the airport or about to board a plane, parang ewan ko, charter yata or something, going to a wedding in the Visayas. And he's part of the wedding party, by the way. Nung in-antigen siya, sir, uwi ka na. Huwag ka na sumama. Manghahawa ka lang doon. And this has been happening. I mean, to the credit of many Filipinos, antigen has become part and parcel. Hindi na sila pumapalag, tanggap na nila. I've been to some dinners na small groups, pero rule namin, lahat mag-antigen na dahil lahat tayo senior citizen na. So safe, but it's a concern for me because according to what Team Agenda supplied me here, NCR recorded the biggest number of cases in the last 2 weeks at 13,991, and doon sa aking minamahal na Batangas at mga kalapit na bayan, Calabar Zone, had 5,332. Now, what's going on, Doc Rontgene?
Well, I think this will be the new normal, no? As we move on in the next 2 to 3 months. We still have BA5 as the most common dominant variant, and we know, Sir Cito, no, BA5 can infect you even if you are fully vaccinated. Can infect you even if you're previously infected. And the fact na meron tayong ganitong variant of concern circulating, plus the fact I cannot totally discount that there are other new subvariants of Omicron na nakikita na sa ibang bansa, kagaya ng BA2.75, already reported in around more than 50 countries now. Ang problema lang natin ngayon, mababa na ang nagpapatest ng RT-PCR, kaya konti lang din ang masisequence ng Philippine Genome Center. So this is not to me a surprise. With more people coming out, a lot of those patients na nakikita namin are attending parties, attending meetings, and yung mga mobility ng mga tao natin talagang as in parang wala na tayong pandemic.
And okay, what happened with the RT-PCR thing? Kasi I had the impression na kung mag-check-in ka o magpapakonsulta ka sa hospital, they still require RT-PCR.
Well, sa mga hospital ngayon, ang nire-require na lang nila na mag-RT-PCR kung meron kang sintomas ng respiratory symptoms, no? But for procedures like magpa-opera, no, yung mga surgical procedures, required pa rin yung RT-PCR. But for any other mga nakikita natin ngayon sa mga household, they only do antigen test. At napakaganda ng sensitivity at specificity ng antigen. Talagang kung ang mag-positive ka sa antigen test, that means you're still in the 5 days of highly infectious stage ng infection na yan.
We don't even have any provision for this kind of random testing kahit na among health workers, public health workers such as yourself?
Sa ngayon, sa mga healthcare facilities, meron tayong tinatawag na surveillance, no? Every 2 or 3 weeks. Pero ito ay ginagawa lang doon sa mga walang bakuna. And kasama yan doon sa IATF memorandum na pag wala kang bakuna, the institution, the facility can make a recommendation to do testing, whether it's an RT-PCR or the option of antigen test every 2 or 3 weeks para lang makita kung sino yung mga nagpa-positive. So it's more focusing on the unvaccinated kasi alam talaga natin ang unvaccinated are the people that are still critical na makuha nila yung infection and then the risk of severe infection.
But you mentioned earlier that even the vaccinated are not protected from the BA5 variant. So where does that leave us? Is it now parang, as they said, live with it already? Kumbaga, tanggap na natin na lahat tayo tatamaan at some point or another, and all you have to really do is rest and okay na. Kasi I've been to some events and I've seen a shift in thinking, Doc, no? Kasi parang people will casually tell me, it's no problem, Cito. If you feel something, you take this, ano yun,
Piravir.
ano yun, pronounce ka?
Molnupiravir.
Monopiravir. Kung kwento nila, para na lang alaksan eh. Sabi ko, teka, hindi ba napakamahal yan? At saka molnupiravir, thank you, Gab, no? Paano? I mean, is it that good? Is that a good mindset to have na meron namang gamot eh? Parang yung mga dami kong kilalang may diabetes. Walang problema yan, bro. May gamot naman eh. Sige, magpa-dialysis kayo. Yan ang gamot nyo dyan.
Yeah, that's something that we have to accept that, no, Sir Cito, because we have been in this pandemic for almost mag-third year na tayo ngayon, no? So, doon na yung fatigue sa mga tao at nakikita naman nila na kadalasan sa mga nakakilala nila, hindi na natin na-experience yung Delta na talagang hingal ka, kailangan kang pupunta ng hospital, no? So the complacency there is driven by most people's experience na mild na lang ang sintomas, no? But again, ganito ang magiging sitwasyon niya, no? Yes, it's mild, pero we have to think also that even in mild COVID, ang kinakatakutan natin ngayon is the long COVID, no? Because people with mild COVID, sa mga data, within a year, they can have stroke, they can have bleeding, they can have infection, pneumonia, no? Na pwedeng apektado sila. And yung mga malalang long COVID, yung memory fog or brain fog,
Okay.
yung focus hindi bumabalik.
I've been, pasensya ka na, no? Alam mo, mahilig na kasi frustrated doctor of medicine din yata ako eh. So lahat itong mga documentary pinapanood ko, there seems to be an impression among some physicians abroad that this long COVID that you were talking about or the bad effects of COVID often hits people who are obese o yung mga matataba, yung mga mataba. Sorry, no, I am not body shaming and sorry, that's how we call them in the Philippines. Matatabang tao, wala sa kondisyon, may nagkakaroon ng complication. So yun ang mas madalas tamaan. Now, what is the situation? Because you're still at the San Lazaro, I presume.
Yes, dito sa amin naman, dito sa government hospital sa San Lazaro, ang nakikita namin ngayon, ang mga medyo na-admit ngayon, yung mga matatanda, no? 60, 70 years old and above, and in fact, even they are vaccinated, they are still admitted. Sir Cito, yung HIV natin, tumataas, ha? Maski may pandemic, tumataas, no? Dumadami.
HIV? AIDS?
Yes, AIDS, no? At pabata ang mga infected ngayon. Pangatlo, yung mga may tuberculosis, no? So ito yung mga more vulnerable population na nakikita namin na tumataas ang mga kaso and they're also infected with COVID, no? Of course, aside from the dengue that we used to, parang routine lang natin yan, mga leptospirosis, no? But ang impact kasi nitong COVID na to, the ability that when they will be co-infecting with sa mga, yung sinabi mo, yung mga obese, may mga comorbidities, it's not a good outcome. It's not a good outcome. Hindi ito pwede kagaya lang ng isipin natin ng flu. Ang flu, 2 to 3 days, ipagpag mo lang yan. Walang ganyang complications. But this one, it will stay in your body, cause more inflammation, and in fact, yung mga obese are the ones also having difficulty in the recovery. Yung mga vulnerable, yung 65, they're also very, very longer ang recovery nila.
Okay, now, in the long run, because Joey Concepcion is saying, look, we need to go out. We need to continue driving the economy, etc. Because we can't stop. If we stop, we will end up in nowhere. So, are the risks worth it right now as a physician? where would you put your money on? Let's go stricter, or sige, live with COVID, just be careful?
I think I will be on the side of live with COVID, but the protection should still be there. Lalabas ka araw-araw, nagtatrabaho, but you have to protect yourselves. Pupunta ka ng mga party, you have to be responsible for yourself. Pag uwi mo, meron kang ma-expose ng mga vulnerable population. You have to be responsible for that, and you have to take care of that. So I mean, we can relax in terms of mobility, but we cannot relax in terms of health protocol.
Okay, now in terms of speaking of health, okay, I'll just grab this chance last 5 minutes natin or 10 minutes. What's going on with the department? You are under the Department of Health. I've been hearing from people that the candidates considered for Secretary of Health are all very worried. They're, parang unusual kasi ang daming pumipila sa Malacanang to become a cabinet member. But in the health sector, parang teka, kayo na lang kasi ayoko nang magulo yung buhay ko, etc. Ito ba, post-COVID reaction, post-Duterte administration reaction? Maganda naman ang buhay niya during the Duterte administration, di ba? Inalagaan naman ang health. Why is there a reluctance among the potential candidates to take on the position of Secretary of Health? May nasasagap ka ba dyan?
Well, ang nakita ko lang dito, this is my personal thought, Sir Cito. The challenges that the Department of Health will really be very high. Expectations is very high, not only from the government but also from the people. No? Nung dinaanan natin tong pandemic, nakikita natin how fragile our healthcare system. Ang dami nating problemang naranasan. And if you are a Secretary of Health, dapat yung puso mo, yung commitment mo should be there, no? And ibig sabihin, you are the target and people will be nandun ka sa mata ng tao, sa mata ng gobyerno, no? And I think that's one reason na it's not business as usual ang magiging Secretary of Health because of the pandemic and at yung haharapin pa natin na mga problema. Cito, we are still looking at when are we going to implement the universal healthcare? Ang dami nating problema ngayon, yung sa expanded program immunization, ang baba ng immunization coverage natin, and we are expecting tataas ang measles, tataas ang dengue, tataas ang leptospirosis. These are all important problems that the next secretary should address. Hindi pa natin binabanggit dyan, Sir Cito, yung health facility development. We need to strengthen the health facilities from level 1, level 2, up to the tertiary because that's where nakikita natin nung nag-COVID tayo ang napupuno ang mga tertiary, no? But the tertiary and secondary level should be managing the mild. Hindi nangyayari yun. Lahat pinadala sa hospital. So I think it's really a convergence of all these factors why some people or why are those na mga competent naman are also worried about accepting the post.
But is there a common candidate among candidates? Kasi I remember in the past, parang merong sympathy vote ba or hindi sympathy votes eh. It's a different translation sa Espanyol eh. Parang simpatico, okay? They like this particular individual, or is it a situation where no one even wants to make a recommendation because it's like feeding your friend to the dogs?
Well, I think there are names. No, I've heard there are names. There are a short list of that. I just don't know what will it take for the president to select those people. And that's why also in the medical community, we're also worried of that because we need a leader. We need someone who will really be committed and put direction on what's the next step for the Department of Health, for our health, no? Because we know this is also priority. We cannot move economy if people are not healthy. So isa to sa mga kailangan i-address ng Pangulo na it should not be delayed as much as possible. Kung mayroon na tayong permanent Secretary of Health, mas maganda rather than just a transitional Secretary of Health.
Ang balita ko, and this is from from ano ba yung tawag nila doon, yung mga chismosa. Anong pangalan? Tawag nila doon? Si
Marites.
Marites. May Marites kasi ako na nagsabi sa akin, Kuyang, maski na si OIC Berhere, ayaw. Sabi ko, bakit? Kasi bakit daw niya paikliin yung stay sa beloved DOH niya para ipagpalit sa isang bundok ng sakit ng ulo. Now, your name was floated. In fact, sa my own staff was saying, yung team agenda, sabi, kunin natin si Doc Rontgene, kuya, kasi yung pangalan niya is being floated. And sabi ko, wag niyong kunin kasi yung mga fino-float, yun yung mga pinababaril. What was your reaction when your name was floated?
Well, it really it was a commendable part of that short list, no, but there are things that we need to prioritize, and the job of a Secretary of Health, marami kasing my work is really more on as a clinician and in the academe and not the public health. And that's where I think where I may not be able to put up a really good work in public health. But again, I was part of that short list, and it's something that I also I'm happy for that.
Okay, but what you don't think it would be a good fit because you're a clinician and academe. So, meron ba talaga do we have a real public health expert in the Philippines, or puro mix din?
Kadalasan din mix, pero we have really good public health expert naman talaga, no? And I think it's just a matter of really putting in someone. Marami tayong mga galing na pwedeng ilalagay dyan sa Secretary of Health, Sir Cito, no?
Mm-hmm.
Tama yung sinabi mo, yung iba lang siguro reluctant to do it because of some mga hesitations, because of the bulk of the problem. So yun yung pinaka-priority doon, commitment and direction sa health natin.
Yung bang mga nalagay sa shortlist, you mentioned it, you heard your name. Did you hear about it, or were you told that your name is on the shortlist? Are the candidates in the shortlist asked first or told later?
They were asked also. And in fact, I was there was interviewed by our president, and we talk about problems of health in the country, not only COVID and all those other, especially the health facility, how we can improve the local government units, how we can buy into how the local government can really improve their capacity also, no, because malaking role ang local government healthcare facility in terms of the approach to the health, because of nakikita natin kadalasan naman sa mga problema natin are public health problem.
Mm-hmm. But okay, kasi I remember a former health secretary telling me at one point that the local government code was a curse for public health, kasi ang nangyari, instead of the national simply rolling out the public health policies, they have to do the song and dance or dance with the local politicians. So while you're saying malaking bagay yung local government, asar-talo rin sila. Half of the time, they get in the way if it's not their priority, or their priority is getting ambulances from PCSO but not building facilities for level 1 facility for clinics, wala rin mangyayari.
Well, that depends on the local government, no? Kaya napaka-importante na pag meron na tayong Secretary of Health, it's important for him to how to really collaborate, emphasize the importance, the role of the local government. And I think nakikita naman natin yan, Sir Cito, nung pandemic, everyone is working with the Department of Health, even at the local government. Although makikita tayo may mga konting disconnect, but it's important, no? Because the budget is in the local government. Yung Mandana's role ba yun na nandun na sa local government ang call for budget and all those things. So I think it's just a matter of tahi-tahiin na lang yan at guidance ng national office. I think we can do that, no? We can do that.
Okay, final question ko sa iyo, Doc Rontgene. Kasi I learned about 2 weeks ago that anyone who wants to go to Japan, all visas have been canceled. You have to reapply. But in order to qualify, you have to have at least three vaccinations for COVID. And the China-made vaccines are not recognized. Katulad ko, first two ko ay Sinovac, and then yung last two, yung booster ko, is Pfizer. Now, darating na ba yung, may kinuwento ka sa akin through Viber one time na meron ng ginagawang vaccine specific for Omicron. Booster ba yan or primary vaccine ba yan? Can you tell us more about that Omicron-specific vaccine?
Yes, no, Sir Cito. No? So there are already like 12 countries now, no, as an update with our meeting last Friday, that are already about to use and roll out the new Omicron variant booster. We call this the bivalent vaccine. Bakit bivalent? Because isa sa mga strain dyan, yung original Wuhan strain, and then yung pangalawang strain is the BA4, BA5. No? So ibig sabihin, very specific ang ano nito, very specific ang antibody na ma-produce. It's more on Omicron. At the same time, very broad ang stimulation ng antibody. So it can protect us from all Omicron, from other variants of concern, and there is a possibility na mas longer ang protection nito. So which means that it may not just be 3 months, 4 months, it can be longer than that, no? So most countries now are in the process of approving this in their own country. I just don't know what's the status here in the Philippines. But UK, US, and Japan is also on the process of rolling this out as their booster. So ibig sabihin, nakatanggap ka ng primary vaccine series, kailangan mo lang ng isang dose for this Omicron variant booster.
Okay, now it has been suggested that these boosters, this next round of vaccines, be made available through the private sector. In other words, the government should stop spending money on this and let the private sector procure it from abroad and sell it sa mga pharmaceutical companies or drugstores. What's your position on that?
Well, I think the government should still purchase this, no? Especially for those who cannot afford. And are in the vulnerable population, like those 50 years old and above with comorbids. Marami-rami pa rin tayong kailangan ng bibigyan ng ganitong klaseng bakuna because we want them to be protected against Omicron. Sinabi mo na nga kanina, nagkaka-Omicron pa rin tayo, maski bakunado na tayo. How much more this vulnerable population? And we don't want this population that will be dying because of the reinfection or the breakthrough infection. So ito na yung sagot natin doon sa mga vulnerable population, not necessarily for the general population. But if the government can also give this for free, mas maganda ang kalalabasan rather than just purely private sector recommend or rollout.
Okay, well, I think we've covered most of the concerns in the public health for this morning. Doc Rontgene Solante, thank you for joining us once again, and please stay in touch so that we can also share your discoveries and your thoughts with our viewers. Maraming salamat, Doc Rontgene.
Maraming salamat, Cito, and stay safe always.
Okay, God bless you, sir. Okay, that's Doc Rontgene Solante. We'll now go for a quick break, and when we return, we go to our next guest, and let's see if we can make sense of the economy because I keep hearing people worrying about the exchange rate, worrying about recession, worrying about United States saving themselves, and that the most powerful asset today is a dollar. and not a barrel of oil? Ewan ko ba? We'll find out from our next guest when we return here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and let's introduce our next guest through this video.
Sonny Africa is Executive Director of IBON Foundation, an independent NGO focused on providing socioeconomic research and analysis on various issues in the country. He is also a board member of the independent media outfit Alter Media. Africa obtained his bachelor's degree in philosophy and economics and master's degree in development studies from the London School of Economics and Political Science.
Okay, welcome back, Sonny. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Morning, Sir Cito. Morning to all your viewers.
Okay, I would like to start off our conversation today with what your assessment is of the Philippine economy, present and future. Kasi the past, forget it, the economy died, period, okay? But present and future, because I keep hearing all of this analysis about the dollar is going to hit 65. Sabi ko nga, so what else is new? We had that in the 70s, And then, the barrel oil will become scarce. We had that in the 70s, Parang, hello, hindi na bago sa amin yan. But what about you? Ikaw kasi bata-bata ka sa akin.
Well, Sir Cito, talaga the wisdom of the elderly. Naalala na yung how things have been happening for the last few decades. Sa amin, the most important thing is, unfortunately, all those decades that are so familiar to you, they've defined the Philippine economy today. And for us right now, the biggest problem facing the Philippine economy is that our domestic production is at.
Okay, I think we've had a technical problem with Sonny. Gab, okay, there. But Sonny's back. I think it was just a glitch. It's raining in the Philippines.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
It is the rain. Sorry, I'm so sorry for that.
Okay.
Ayun nga, I think we're a bit unfortunately path dependent. Where we are right now is because of where we were coming from in the last decades. For us, the biggest problem really is that production is at its lowest in decades. Our manufacturing is the lowest in about 70 years, since the 1950s, as a share of the economy. Our agriculture is the smallest in its entire history. Services have just been trying to make up for that with jobs, but we're not creating enough jobs.
Yeah.
Job generation is actually lowering. Even before the pandemic, annual job generation weaker. There was a point actually about 2018, 2019, we were deploying new domestic jobs are being created. So where we are right now, it's not a very good place. Pero sa amin, we're always optimistic. The government can always do something about it. The future can be better if the government sort of takes a bit more decisive efforts and sort of parang kumawala ng konti from the not so successful policies of the past.
Yeah, speaking of not so successful policies in the past, are all our nightmares as a result of idiots in government or policy? No, I'm serious about this, Sonny. Okay, because last night I was just thinking about the fact that Filipinos now have to pay more to travel. Yung mga nag-OFW to travel to Europe, to go to the Middle East or wherever as seamen kasi Rotterdam ang kanilang main destination. But because we started monkeying around with our relationship with the international airlines, may mga stupido who started saying, oh no, let's put a tax, let's charge them for, they're making money picking up passengers in the Philippines. And so the international operator said, well, if you don't appreciate the service we give your Filipinos, we'll base in Taiwan. So, or we'll do it out of Bangkok, etc. So we lost the direct flight, etc. And then now they tried to restore it. Sabi ng mga airlines, too late, buddy. We were there already. You kicked us out. And then yung sa vaccines, dengue, the Dengvaxia vaccine, we politicized it to high heavens. And what happened? Now there are about, I think, 8 or 20 countries using the vaccine. And when they were asked, when are you going to bring it back to the Philippines? Sorry, sobrang busy na kami sa ibang lugar eh. Doon na muna kami without saying, manigas kayo. You were the pioneer. We were testing it in your country, but you politicized it. So, my point is, I don't want to pick a fight with Paul. Even with this gambling thing, Sonny, what's happening? You have congressmen lobbying for Pogos, lobbying for Isabong. I mean, what the hell? So is this about mistakes of government, or is it, politicians in office who don't know zip? But they get to make the laws and they get to challenge.
Oh nga, ako, Sir Cito, it actually stepped back eh. I think one of the biggest problems we've had over the last maybe 40, 50 years, instead of strengthening the way our government handles the economy, manages the economy, the tendency has been to, again, because of the problems with the Marcos dictatorship, to roll back government. So I think there was I'm sorry to sound philosophical, no? If the orientation is to shrink government, then that means we aren't actually creating the core of technocrats and bureaucrats to manage the government properly. So kumbaga, the conditions for this, sa term, sorry, that
Go ahead.
The term na the conditions for idiots coming to government was because our government institutions were not created to manage the economy. And I think a good counterpoint is, again, just close to home, no? Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, actually even China. These are countries that had from the very start wanted the government to be intervening in the economy. So with that sort of philosophy na they didn't want to shrink the government, they wanted to strengthen government to manage the economy for development, for economic progress. They were paying their technocrats and bureaucrats well. They had training programs with technocrats and bureaucrats. And it was meritocratic. If you weren't performing well, tatanggalin ka. And I think that orientation of government is bad, let's shrink it. I think these vultures, ang term nga, the idiots, that's actually rich ground for them because they're entering a government that does not have the checks and balances, the mechanisms to contain them. So kumbaga, instead of, like you said nga, bad policy choices, that can happen. It's all learning by doing naman. Diba? In a very dynamic world, you make policy choices, some are on point, some may be papalpak. But if you don't have the mechanisms to check yung mga bad policy choices, you're actually institutionalizing not government capacity to manage the economy. What will happen is what we're doing now. we're institutionalizing, sabi mo nga, idiots who actually get by doing whatever they want because they're the political backers. And actually, sa amin, even worse, you actually have government that actually makes a few wealthy while leaving most people behind. And I was listening to your earlier guest. Actually, a lot of the problems, for instance, in our public health system was because we're thinking that let's just leave everything to the private sector. Let's leave everything to the to private hospitals through telehealth and then have them provide the healthcare. So instead of beefing up the Department of Health, instead of beefing up how you manage your public health system, you're shrinking it, you're cutting their budgets, and that's the bottom line, diba? If you're cutting your budget, if you're emaciating your public health system, you're actually emaciating your government's capacity to manage the public health system. And I think going across the whole economy, agriculture industry, if your orientation is let's shrink government back, you're actually creating the conditions for the health system, agriculture industry to actually diminish without the government intervening. So medyo, I know it's kind of maraming layers siya, but where the economy is right now, it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't because of, again, idiots in this government or the last government. It's because of structurally we are not creating.
Hassani, how long can we go with, how long can this keep going on? Because what frightens me for the Philippines is one day we're going to hit a wall. I think the biggest warning sign right now is agriculture. So many people I've been talking to have been telling me, Cito, mag-ipon-ipon ka na ng ayop sa farm mo, malaki ka na kasi baka pagdating sa Disyembre, wala ka nang mabiling baboy or wala nang gulay, etc. Parang everyone's talking about a food crisis. And you know, in any country in the world, when food crisis happens, inflation hits, and there's a revolution. Civil or bloody, a revolution follows. How much longer can this charade or this circus go on?
I think, unfortunately, we've been on a low level of crisis for so many decades. People are getting kind of inured and used to it. And I think so, if you're looking for that wall, sa to lang in recent memory, the biggest walls the economy hit were halimbawa in the early 1980s with the debt crisis. We didn't have any foreign exchange to pay for our debt. Couldn't import, naipit ang supplies, everything. Yung parang Sri Lanka of right
parang
now.
Sri Lanka,
The Philippines. I think if we're looking for that kind of dramatic hitting of the wall, fortunately, or some might say unfortunately, because we do have enough foreign exchange coming especially from our OFWs, that kind of wall where the economy stumbles across the board, that's actually kind of not in the near future pa right now. I mean, if interests keep going up, if our OFW remittances keep slowing, if BPO revenues fall kasi nga of artificial intelligence or whatever, I mean, that we might get closer to that. But that wall, I think, is going to be a long time in coming pa.
But what about
the problem is that the low-grade crisis. I mean, just the other day, I saw this Bangko Sentral survey. It was so amazing. 7 out of 10 Filipino households don't have any savings. And this increased from the last quarter of last year. So kumbaga, with the reopening, instead of people saving more, you actually have more people losing their savings kasi they're not earning enough. So sa amin, that's not a wall per se, but you know, to have 7 out of 10 Filipino families just literally hand-to-mouth existence, I think that's a low-grade problem, low-grade crisis, ongoing. It's not a wall or a cliff, but I think something has to be dealt with naman.
Well, okay, 7 out of 10 families don't have savings. They can't save money because they're short on money. And then there is a malingering food shortage made worse by international events. But then you pointed out that there are no new jobs being created, no activity in manufacturing and production, but we keep producing babies and graduating college students. So where is that all going to end up? Because I've been pushing my friends, go send your children abroad. Mag-aral, magtiis ka na. Padala mo na lang abroad yung mga anak ninyo Kasi doon, pag nag-internship sila, malamang makakuha sila ng trabaho, malamang makamigrate sila. And in the last campaign, I was supporting Lenny Robredo in her position. We should keep sending Filipinos abroad to better jobs because this boat is sunk. Do you agree in my perspective?
I think it's a short-term solution for individual families, syempre. I mean, if you don't have anything here, you go abroad. And I think case in point, the economic managers keep hyping the employment increase since before the pandemic. But actually, we're so surprised, more than half of the work created is actually part-time work. About 6 out of 10 is self-employment or even this word category called unpaid family work. So parang my work, but it's really poorly paying work, explaining why so many families are losing their savings. So parang it's a short-term measure to go abroad because they don't have it here. But para sa amin, the big fix won't come at the individual level. I mean, Filipinos are rational, di ba? You will find work where you can, however you can. If you can find it abroad, good. But again, to be clear, did you know that average remittances overseas are falling? And they've been falling even before the pandemic because it's not just the Philippines sending people abroad. Bangladesh is doing it, India's doing it, so many other countries are doing it.
So the payout or the salary scales have reduced. And of course, the cost of living for those OFWs have also increased. So talagang mababawasan. Parang yung mga tumama sa loto, akala nila 540 million, hindi nila alam may 20% tax.
Pero may 80% na naman sila, Sir Cito. So medyo makakahinga pa sila ng kahit na kaunti doon. Pero sa amin, it all goes down to we have to fix how the economy is not creating enough jobs. And I think maraming opportunities right now to learn from the mistakes of the past and not supporting domestic agriculture, not supporting Filipino manufacturing, relying so much on foreign investment instead of trying to sort of get a bit more gains from foreign investment instead of the headline figures na investment and a few jobs created. Let's look for technology transfer. Let's look for little spaces to create in terms of domestic industry. Kung wala yung effort na gano'n, if you're going to leave it to the market, which is basically the default mode of the government, that's not learning from our negative experience. Even worse, it's not learning from the positive experience of even our Asian neighbors, South Korea, Taiwan, of course, China, even the US and Western Europe. They all developed their economy kasi the government intervened. So shaping your government destroys the domestic economy.
Do you have a positive? Are you optimistic that those in charge right now are going to do likewise? Do they have the competency or? Kasi, when BBM announced his economic team, everybody was rah, all veterans, all experts, all good. 3 months later, iba na. Ang mga nadidinig ko, puro banat na.
I think that's where we have to fall back on what we believe are democratic institutions. If we have more people talking about alternatives, if we have more people critical of government policies, not to destroy, but to create the foundations for thinking about things differently, I think that does create the momentum. Okay. I mean, it's not going to happen if you have all this red tagging and attacks on critics saying that this are all whatever communist NPA recruiters. Para kung ganun yung climate mo, you're actually stifling policy alternatives being discussed. And of course, unfortunately, hindi idiots economic managers. They're all very smart people.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, if you look at their record, like Sec Jokna, for instance, he's been around since the Cory era. Diba? Undersecretary siya ni BM dati, immunity appointments. But actually, all the members of the economic team, they've been around implementing, I think, the wrong kind of economic policies. That free market globalization stuff, it's medyo panis na. It's so obsolete. Even those who were pushing it before aren't doing it now. The US is protecting itself. The UK is protecting itself. China's never stopped protecting itself. Ano ba yun? So parang, can we learn kind of from how other countries have developed?
Yeah, we're always first in front of the line to say, yes, we will sign the proposal of the AFTA, the APEC, etc.
Yeah.
Kasi gusto natin bida tayo pero hindi natin binasa yung yung fine print.
And it's so disappointing. There actually are still domestic Filipino manufacturers, industrialists who want to work for a stronger Philippine economy. But even something like, again, idiots na naman like nabanggit mo, smuggling. I mean, if you're a small Filipino manufacturer, how can you compete with smuggled goods from China? So even that whatever little market you're trying to sort of break into, if someone else is smuggling a counterpart product, and I won't mention names kasi baka matukoy.
Hello, nakakasmuggle nga sila 86 pieces ng Ferrari.
Hindi pa ako.
Ko na sa column ko yun.
Sa amin, even small things like steel products, iron products, potentially that can be produced in the Philippines. Pero, you know, if it's smuggled in cheaply from China.
So, you know, Sonny, I'm going to have to invite you to a one whole show. Tayong dalawa lang.
I'm so sorry, Cito. I talk too much.
No. It's not your fault. It's just that, you know, you have such a wide perspective. I have so many questions. I'm going to have to invite you, but at least I think we hit the nail on the head. We cannot keep using the same solution to the same problem knowing it doesn't work. So I'll ask you back sometime later this week or next week, and let's roll it all out. Tamaan na ang tatamaan. But thank you for joining us today.
Sir Cito, thank you. Good morning.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. Naubusan po tayo ng oras with Sonny Africa. That's always the case because the guy is so smart and so experienced that we just run out of time. Anyway, we'll have him back very soon. And let's wrap up the program with this week's blessing. It comes from the song Hand to Hold by J.J. Heller. This is such a beautiful song. Hand to Hold by J.J. Heller. May you never lose the wonder in your soul. May you always have the blanket for the cold. May the living light inside you be the compass as you go. May you always know you have my hand to hold. Hawak lang po tayo kay Lord. Let's hold on to the Lord and He will bless us. Thank you very much for joining us here on Agenda. Keep it here on One News.